Welcome to Uncle Bunty. Today I'm going to tell you the story about two farmers. It is a true story I tell you about two farmers. And for the sake of remaining anonymous, because these farmers are real and I know them very well, I am telling this story. I have their permission, by the way, but I shall call them Tim and Ted. Now, Tim and Ted are neighbours, and Tim buys a bit of winter fodder from Ted. But the year being what it is, well, sure, 'tis been fairly bad here with the old rain falling from the sky, and the old winter crop hasn't been saved yet. And so Tim is getting anxious. Anyhow, that may be a story of its own. But just to give you a picture of what's going on here, Tim is a person of faith. Well, so is Ted, but Tim is someone who says that he can take God at his word. Ted went and said, "Are you sure you have a direct line with God like that?" To which Tim said, "Yes." And so they got talking about when it was that they were going to make some hay and when the grass could be cut. Then here's what happened anyhow. Ted went and informed Tim that he was too busy and wouldn't be able to start till Thursday. So Tim said, "No, she'll leave it with me. I'll have a chat with the man above and we'll arrange things to happen on Thursday. You be ready with the tractor first thing there on Thursday morning, and when you go out there and cut the grass, God's going to give you 10 good days. 10 fine days to save the grass." Ted says, "How do you know that?" Tim says, "Because I'll tell you why. I'm going to ask him." Now, here's the thing. Whose side do you fall down in this story? Would you be in Tim's camp or would you be in Ted's camp? So, just to give you a little bit of perspective on this now, here's the scriptures that were put onto the whole thing. The first thing that Tim went and said to Ted was that God is the one who gives the harvest. And you can find that out in his first promise, that it's promised in Genesis chapter 8 and verse 22. And it goes and states the following: "As long as the earth endures, seed time and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, day and night will never cease." And so Tim went and said, there you go. The Lord has declared that there is going to be seed time and harvest as long as the earth endures. So there's nothing to worry about. He also went on to go and say that being someone who believes in Jesus Christ and Jesus' teaching, Jesus goes and says, "If you ask anything in my name, it'll be given unto you." Because, here's why. Your Heavenly Father knows what you need even before you ask. And you can read that in Matthew 6, 7 to 8. "And when you pray, do not keep on babbling like the pagans, for they think that they will be heard because of their many words. Do not be like them, for your Father knows what you need even before you ask." So, Tim, being the loyal sort of a fellow who's always bought his hay and winter feed from Ted, went and said, "Look, I'm going to pray and you be ready with the tractor." And so he did. And this was what he went and prayed. He said, "The Lord knows what I need of winter feeding," and he's asked that the Lord would bless him with fulfilling his needs and bless his neighbour with fulfilling his needs. So it wasn't being about being selfish or anything else like that. And to bless him with 10 good days. But this is what Tim went and said to Ted. Tim said, if you go and look at the weather forecast and you suddenly see that there's a change in the weather being forecast, then you know that you heard it from me first, that I was the one who asked the Lord. But the crucial point of this story was that Ted was to go and enter the field on Thursday morning. Well, Thursday morning it shone. 'Twas beautiful, bright. It was a gorgeous day. The temperatures were up around 22 degrees, 23 degrees there in the middle of the day. There wasn't a cloud hardly in the sky, and it was all looking good. But Ted never started the tractor. Now, this is where the question comes into it. Because Ted went and checked the phone. And when Ted checked the phone, he saw that the weatherman didn't go and say anything about 10 straight days. But there was never going to be any 10 straight days until the tractor started on the Thursday morning. So Tim went and said, Anyway, Ted said that he looked at the weather forecast, and so the poor old weatherman's been getting the blame here. 'Tis the weatherman's fault. All of the story is the weatherman's fault. And if you know anything about Ireland in this last week, well, we had Storm Betty, and we had rain, and we had all sorts of terrible weather. But the thing was, it was not suitable for making hay. When Tim said, "How come you didn't start the tractor and cut the grass on Thursday?" Ted's reply was, because the weatherman didn't go say anything about 10 straight days. And if God was going to speak and go and do something about the weather, surely the weatherman would have known. Now there you go. There's the crux of the matter, right? The day went and dawned fine and fair, and it couldn't be any better on that Thursday. 'Twas like a summer's day in June, even though it was in the middle of the end of August. But Ted didn't start the tractor because the weatherman went and said there was a storm on the way. Now, here's the theological question I want to put you today. Number 1, do you believe that God would have actually given Tim his 10 days had Ted started the tractor? That's the question. Or would you be like Ted and go and say, well, if the Lord was going to bless me with 10 days, surely the weatherman would have known about it. Now there is the crux. Which side do you come down on? What way is it that you discern how it is that God answers prayer? Do you think that Tim was too spiritually minded to be of no earthly good? Or do you think that Ted was rooted in the ground and he was walking by sight and not by faith? They are the two questions to go and put to you. And I think it is a very interesting conundrum. Now, since then, Storm Betty has gone, and in fairness, the heavy rain is gone, and the grass has been cut. But will it be hay? And will God still bless him with 10 straight days? Well, I don't know. Because after all, here's the thing. Tim didn't pray about them days. He said that God had got out of the contract. God didn't have to go and answer his prayer, because Ted never started the tractor. What do you think? 'Tis an interesting one. Maybe 'tis one that has been divisive over many years, but here's the question that we have to ask ourselves is this. When it comes to prayer, do we really take God at his word? Are you someone who walks by faith or walks by sight? Let me know. Thanks for joining me for this cupán.